Have you ever heard of a secret that could change everything? Black cleaning lady hid her identity as a fighter pilot for 8 years. Then they forced her into the cockpit. Let's give our beloved cleaning lady a lesson in humility, announced Captain Bradley Thompson, his voice echoing through the Riverside Air Force Base hangar as he pointed directly at Kesha Williams. How about we show her what it's like to sit in the seat of real pilots? The cruel laughter of the other officers filled the cold morning air. Kesha stood motionless, gripping the broomstick tightly, her brown eyes fixed on the concrete floor she had been cleaning for 8 long years. At 42, she had perfected the art of invisibility, head down, movements discreet, never confronting authority. Thompson was the typical privileged officer that the military base had produced in abundance. The son of a senator, he had graduated from Harvard through family connections and had never faced a situation where his arrogance was not protected by political influence. "I said you," Thompson shouted louder, walking toward her in his polished military boots. The black cleaning lady. You know what your problem is? You people think you can do anything because of this diversity crap nowadays. Wait, could this be the moment her secret is revealed? For a moment, Kesha closed her eyes and allowed herself to remember the sound of F-22 Raptor turbines at combat altitude. The feeling of being completely in control of a machine that cost $150 million. That was before everything fell apart. Before the conspiracy, before her identity was erased forever. Kesha looked up slowly. For a brief moment, something dangerous flashed in her eyes. A spark that Thompson interpreted as fear, but which was actually something much more complex. "Sir, I need to finish cleaning the North Sector," she replied calmly, her voice betraying no emotion. It was the same response she had given for years whenever someone tried to provoke her. "Cleaning can wait." Thompson smiled maliciously. "What can't wait is the education you're about to receive. Jamie, bring the flight gear for our pilot here." Lieutenant Jamie Foster, son of a general and Thompson's protege, rushed to fetch a used flight suit and a scratched helmet. The prank had been planned the night before in the officer's bar: put the black cleaning lady in an F-16 fighter jet and film her inevitable humiliation. "Listen here, Kesha." Thompson pronounced her name with deliberate disdain. "You're going to get in that cockpit. You're going to pretend you know what you're doing and we're going to have a good laugh. Consider it part of your professional development." Foster held the cell phone, already imagining the millions of views. "This is going to go viral faster than that cat pilot meme. Cleaning lady tries to be Top Gun. People are going to love it. Hold on, is she about to turn the tables?" Kesha accepted the equipment without protest. As she donned the jumpsuit, her hands moved with a precision that no one noticed. Fingers that automatically adjusted straps and equipment with suspicious familiarity. It was like riding a bike. The body never forgets. Thompson gestured grandly to the small crowd that had gathered. "Ladies and gentlemen, witness the moment when our esteemed cleaning lady learns about boundaries and appropriate places." Kesha walked toward the F-16 with measured steps. The aircraft was prepared for a routine flight, fully fueled and with operating systems. As she climbed the ladder, a memory flashed through her mind. Her last flight before it all ended when she was still Captain Kesha Phoenix Williams. "I hope you don't throw up in my plane," Thompson shouted from below. "That F-16 is worth more than your entire family will earn in 10 lifetimes. But as Kesha settled into the pilot seat, something extraordinary happened. The cockpit embraced her like a familiar glove. Her hands found the controls with surgical precision. Her eyes scanned the instruments with professional speed. And for one almost imperceptible moment, she forgot where she was. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable. Her shoulders straightened, her breathing became controlled, and something in the atmosphere changed completely. Thompson noticed the change and frowned. "Hey, what are you doing up there? Don't touch anything." Kesha took a deep breath, her hands hovering over the controls like a pianist facing a piano after years of forced silence. For 8 years, she had kept her secret buried, living as a shadow of her former self. But something in this man's cruel arrogance sparked a decision she had been putting off for a long time. Her fingers found the ignition sequence. A simple choice separated her from a lifetime of silent humiliation or a moment that would change everything forever. The question wasn't whether she knew how to fly. The question was whether she was willing to show the world who she really was. In the makeshift audience, some of the older mechanics began to notice details that the officers overlooked. The way she automatically adjusted the mirrors. How her feet found the pedals without hesitation. How her hands moved across the controls with a familiarity impossible for a cleaning lady. If you're enjoying this story of courage and overcoming adversity, be sure to subscribe to Black Voices to find out how a simple lesson in humility turned into the biggest revelation that military base had ever witnessed. Because what Thompson didn't know was that she was about to awaken a ghost that the Air Force had tried to bury forever. The roar of the F-16's engines echoed through the hangar with such precision that several mechanics stopped working and looked up in surprise. Kesha had executed the ignition sequence with the speed and smoothness of someone who had done it thousands of times, not like a nervous cleaning lady trying to fake competence. "Wait a minute," Thompson shouted, his initial confidence beginning to waver. How did she know how to do that without instructions? Foster continued filming, but something in his expression changed. Man, she didn't even hesitate. Look how she's sitting in there. She looks like she was born in that cockpit. Through the cockpit glass, Kesha checked instruments with fluid, automatic movements. Her fingers danced across the controls like a pianist playing a familiar song. Each gesture revealing years of experience that no cleaning lady should possess. Thompson felt a chill of unease, but his ego wouldn't allow him to admit he was wrong. It's just beginner's luck. Any idiot can start an engine if he presses enough buttons. Let's see if she can do anything else. He picked up the radio from the control tower. "Davis, you've had enough fun. Turn everything off and get down from there before you cause any damage." The response came back clear and professional over the communication system. "Tower, this is Griffin 07. Requesting clearance to taxi." The silence that followed was deafening. Kesha had used standard aviation communication procedures with terminology that took years to master completely. "What the hell?" Thompson muttered, his face turning pale. She shouldn't know radio protocols. But Kesha knew much more than protocols. 8 years ago, she was Captain Kesha Williams, the first black woman to command an elite Air Force squadron. Phoenix, the nickname she had earned for her uncanny ability to emerge victorious from the most impossible situations. Everything changed on a reconnaissance mission over hostile territory in the Middle East. Her team discovered evidence of an American general selling weapons to terrorist groups. General Morrison, who happened to be the father-in-law of then Colonel Thompson, the father of the captain who was now humiliating her. When Kesha reported the discovery, she found herself at the center of a deadly conspiracy. Documents were forged, witnesses were bought, and from national heroine, she became a scapegoat. The charge, leaking classified military information to the enemy. The very crime she had tried to expose. "She's moving the plane," someone in the crowd shouted. Thompson ran toward the runway, talking furiously on his radio. "Davis, stop immediately. You are not authorized to move that aircraft." But Kesha was already taxiing with pinpoint precision, maintaining constant speed and perfect alignment, techniques that demonstrated not only knowledge but absolute mastery. "Call base security," Thompson ordered Foster. "This is military aircraft theft. She's going to be arrested for this." Foster hesitated, his camera still rolling. "Thompson, Manitoba, did you see how she did that? That wasn't luck. She knows exactly what she's doing. She's a damn cleaning lady." Thompson exploded. His mask of superiority finally cracking. She probably watched a few YouTube videos and thinks she can fly a military fighter jet. But in the back of his mind, a terrible suspicion was beginning to form. That competence, that familiarity with military procedures, the way she had behaved for years on the base, always present, always watching, but never truly invisible to those who knew what to look for. The F-16 was now positioned at the head of the main runway, engines warming up with the characteristic sound of a machine ready to fly. Kesha was following pre-flight protocols with a precision that would make veteran pilots jealous. My God, whispered one of the older mechanics, a 30-year veteran. I know that style. I've seen that precision before, but it's been a long time. Thompson grabbed the man by the arm. What are you getting at? Nothing, sir. It's just that, well, there was a female pilot years ago. Phoenix, they called her. She flew just like that, as if the machine was part of her body. Phoenix is dead, Thompson said quickly, his voice betraying more knowledge than it should have. I mean, she was. She disappeared. It has nothing to do with this. But his eyes couldn't tear themselves away from the figure in the cockpit. And for the first time in his privileged life, Thompson felt something he had never experienced before. Real fear that his actions would have consequences. On the runway, Kesha finished her final pre-flight checks. Through her headset, she could hear Thompson shouting contradictory orders to the control tower, his voice growing higher with every passing second. Each new attempt by Thompson to appear in control only revealed how desperately out of control he really was. The man who minutes earlier had mocked a mere cleaning lady now faced the terrifying reality that he had completely underestimated his victim. And Kesha hadn't even taken off yet. Every insult Thompson had hurled, every cruel laugh from the crowd, every moment of humiliation from the past 8 years was being carefully catalogued in her memory. Not to fuel anger, but to calibrate the precision of the lesson she was about to teach. What Thompson didn't know was that Phoenix Williams had spent 8 years not just hiding, but preparing. And today, in front of dozens of cameras and hundreds of witnesses, she was about to show the world that some phoenixes don't die. They just wait for the right moment to rise from the ashes. More powerful than ever. Control tower, this is Griffin 07 requesting clearance for takeoff. Kesha's professional voice echoed over the base radios, causing a deathly silence among the air traffic controllers. Thompson grabbed the radio from the chief controller's hand. Davis, I ordered you to shut down the engines. This is military insubordination. Negative, sir. Flight clearance has been granted for training procedures in accordance with Military Regulation Section 12.3. Kesha replied with technical coldness that caused several veterans at the base to exchange worried glances. Foster continued filming, but his expression had completely changed. Thompson, she knows the regulations better than we do. How does a cleaning lady know that? Shut up and keep recording. Thompson hissed, sweat beginning to form on his forehead. When she crashes on that runway, I want everything documented for the court-martial. But in the control tower, something extraordinary was happening. Colonel James Mitchell, commander of air operations and a 30-year veteran, watched the proceedings through binoculars with growing disbelief. Sergeant Rodriguez, he called to his nearest assistant. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Yes, sir. Pre-flight procedures executed with absolute military precision. Optimal warm-up time. Perfect positioning on the runway, Rodriguez listed in a tense voice. Sir, this is not the work of an amateur. Mitchell lowered his binoculars slowly. Rodriguez, how many years have you been in the service? 22, sir. I've been in it 30. And in my entire career, I've seen only one person fly with that kind of technical precision in ground procedures. Mitchell paused, a terrible suspicion taking shape in his mind. Phoenix Williams. Rodriguez choked. Sir, Phoenix was declared dead 8 years ago. Traitorous officer sold military information. Innocent officer, Mitchell corrected firmly. I was on the original investigation committee. The documents that incriminated her were so poorly forged that a child could have spotted them. But Morrison had political connections and Phoenix was a black woman with no one to pull her strings. On the track, Kesha finished her final checks with fluid movements that demonstrated not just competence, but absolute mastery. Through the cockpit glass, she could see Thompson gesticulating frantically, surrounded by a growing crowd of onlookers. Sergeant Rodriguez, Mitchell said firmly. I want you to open a secure channel with me and that pilot. Now, but sir, Thompson said she's just. Thompson is a privileged idiot who couldn't recognize real competence if it bit his golden ass. Mitchell cut him off. Do as I said. The secure channel opened with a silent click. Unidentified pilot. This is Colonel Mitchell. Control tower. Identify yourself properly. There was a long pause before the reply came, laden with contained emotion. Colonel Mitchell, is that really you, Phoenix? Mitchell whispered, his voice breaking. Jesus Christ, is that you? Kesha Davis, sir. Level 2 janitor. Phoenix Williams died 8 years ago, she replied. But there were tears in her voice. Mitchell closed his eyes, remembering the bright young captain who had been destroyed by corrupt men. Phoenix, I tried to help you. By the time I discovered the truth about Morrison and the conspiracy, it was too late. You had disappeared. I know, sir. General Morrison is dead, but his legacy lives on. Kesha looked directly at Thompson through the glass of the cabin. His son married Colonel Thompson Sr.'s daughter. Our arrogant captain down there is the grandson of one of the men who destroyed my career. The revelation hit Mitchell like a punch in the stomach. Thompson is family of the conspiracy that framed you. Third generation of military privilege built on my ruin. Kesha confirmed. For 8 years I cleaned the toilets he dirted, listened to his racist jokes. Put up with his arrogance. He had no idea that the black cleaning lady was the pilot his ancestors destroyed. Mitchell watched Thompson on the runway, shouting orders that no one followed. His authority evaporating by the second. Phoenix, do you have evidence of the original conspiracy? 8 years of gathering. Sir, Morrison confessed everything on his deathbed to a priest, thinking he was protected by the confessional. The priest recorded everything and gave me the complete confession 3 years ago. Kesha smiled for the first time in years. I have names, dates, offshore bank accounts, forged documents, everything. Why didn't this come to light sooner? Because I wanted more than justice, Colonel. I wanted them to destroy themselves with their own arrogance, she observed Thompson having a nervous breakdown on the runway. People like Thompson only learn when they are humiliated publicly. Foster continued recording, now broadcasting live to his social media accounts where the video was already racking up thousands of views. Comments began flooding in. Who is this woman? She flies better than any pilot I've ever seen. Thompson looks like he's losing it. Mitchell made a decision that would change everything. Phoenix, do you still remember how to perform an Alpha-class aerial demonstration? Like it was yesterday, sir. Then show those sons of what a real pilot can do. You have full clearance for an unrestricted aerial demonstration. Clear your name the only way that matters, by proving they never deserve to breathe the same air as you. Kesha felt something she hadn't felt in 8 years. Hope mixed with purpose. Roger that, Tower. Griffin 07 requesting clearance for full airshow. Clearance granted. Phoenix, show them what it means to fly with honor. On the runway, Thompson realized he had completely lost control of the situation. Her game had turned into something much bigger, and he was beginning to suspect that he had catastrophically underestimated the woman he had spent years humiliating. The sound of the F-16's engines changed pitch, indicating preparation for actual takeoff. Thompson looked up at the blue sky and for the first time in his privileged life, felt true fear of what he was about to witness. Kesha positioned the aircraft at the end of the runway. 8 years of controlled anger and silent dignity turning into pure determination. She was no longer just flying a plane. She was resurrecting Phoenix Williams from the grave where cowardly men had buried her. What Thompson didn't know was that he wasn't about to witness just an airshow. He was about to witness the rebirth of a legend, and his own destruction would be the fuel that fed the flames of that resurrection. Griffin 07, you are cleared for unrestricted aerial demonstration. Show them what it means to fly with honor. Colonel Mitchell's voice echoed in Kesha's headset like a long-awaited blessing. The F-16 roared down the runway with an acceleration that made observers instinctively recoil. In 3 seconds, Kesha was airborne, and in 5, she executed a vertical turn that defied the laws of physics. What followed was not just an aerial demonstration. It was a work of art written in the sky. Thompson watched from the ground, his face turning white, then green as he realized the magnitude of his mistake. That's impossible, he muttered, watching the F-16 perform maneuvers that only the best pilots in the world could master. A cleaning lady can't fly like that. Captain Thompson, Foster said, still filming. The video already has 50,000 live views. The comments are asking who this incredible pilot is. At an altitude of 1,500 m, Kesha performed a Pugachev's Cobra, a maneuver that few American pilots could perform. The F-16 literally stopped in midair, raised its nose 90 degrees, and resumed normal flight in a display of control that made veteran mechanics applaud spontaneously. "My God," whispered one of the air traffic controllers. "I've only seen that maneuver once in my life 8 years ago, performed by the legendary Kesha Williams." Thompson grabbed the radio with trembling hands. "Davis, come down immediately. That's a direct order." The response came loaded with 8 years of silent dignity, finally released. "Negative, Captain. You wanted an educational demonstration. That's exactly what you're getting." What happened over the next 10 minutes redefined the concept of aeronautical mastery. Kesha executed a sequence of maneuvers that combined technical precision with pure artistry. Inverted loops at impossible speeds, low-level approaches that made people throw themselves to the floor, and culminating in a solo formation that spelled out the word Phoenix in the sky using contrails. Foster, now broadcasting to multiple platforms simultaneously, narrated with a trembling voice, "Folks, I don't know who this woman is, but she is rewriting everything we know about flying. There are 100,000 people watching this live." In the control tower, Mitchell smiled for the first time in years. He activated the base's open channel. "Attention, Riverside personnel. You're witnessing the return of Captain Kesha Kesha Williams, betrayed and hunted by a military conspiracy 8 years ago, but who never lost her skills or her honor." The silence that followed was broken only by the distant roar of engines. On the runway, Thompson dropped the radio, his world collapsing in real time. "Kesha Williams," he whispered. "But she's dead. She was a traitor." "She was cleaning your toilets, son," said a veteran mechanic, approaching with anger in his eyes. "For 8 years, you humiliated the best pilot this nation has ever produced, and we filmed it all." Kesha's landing was a final demonstration of skill. She touched the runway so softly that it seemed as if the plane had simply decided to stop flying. When the cockpit door opened, a crowd of hundreds had gathered, including officers rushing in from other parts of the base. Thompson tried one last desperate gambit. "This proves nothing. She could have learned to fly. For all we know, she's still just a funk." "Captain Thompson," Mitchell interrupted over the loudspeaker. "You might want to check your cell phone. Your performance today has gone viral under the hashtag #PhoenixJanitor. 50 million views in the last 2 hours." Thompson's legs gave out. He had been filmed humiliating a national hero, and the whole world was watching. His phone exploded with calls from the Pentagon, from reporters, from angry superiors. Kesha stepped out of the cockpit with the same quiet dignity she had maintained for 8 years. She removed her helmet, revealing eyes that had seen real combat and survived betrayal. When she spoke, her voice reached every corner of the base. "For 8 years, I cleaned the bathrooms where officers like Thompson made jokes about diversity and competence. I heard every cruel word, every racist comment, every statement that people like me didn't belong in military aviation." She paused, looking directly at the cameras. "Today, I proved that competence has no color, no gender, and definitely no fear of small men with big egos." Thompson tried to hide in the crowd, but Foster followed him with the camera. "Captain, would you like to comment on humiliating one of the greatest pilots in American military history?" I didn't know," Thompson stammered, sweat pouring down his face. "If I had known who she was exactly," Kesha interrupted, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. "If you knew who I was, you would treat me differently. But the problem, Captain, is how you treat people you believe are inferior to you. It reveals exactly who you really are." Mitchell appeared on the tarmac carrying an official military briefcase. "Captain Williams, on behalf of the United States Air Force, I offer you full restoration of your rank, immediate promotion to major, and command of any squadron you desire." Kesha looked at the folder, then at the crowd of faces, some ashamed, some admiring, all transformed by what they had witnessed. For 8 years, she had imagined this moment. But now that it had arrived, her response surprised even her. What Thompson didn't know was that the public humiliation he had just suffered was only the beginning. The evidence Kesha had collected over 8 years about the conspiracy that destroyed his career was about to come to light, and his entire political family would be dragged down with him. But that would only be part of the lesson the world was about to learn about underestimating those with true power. Kesha looked at the folder offered by Colonel Mitchell, then at the hundreds of faces watching her in absolute silence. When she finally spoke, her voice carried 8 years of quiet dignity turned into power. "Colonel Mitchell, I deeply appreciate the offer of reinstatement. But during these 8 years, I've learned something that no rank can teach." She paused, handing the folder back. "I've learned that my identity does not depend on the recognition of others. I am Phoenix Williams with or without a uniform." Thompson, still kneeling on the tarmac, watched his military career evaporate in real time. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Calls from the Pentagon, from furious superiors, from reporters hungry for statements. The hashtag Phoenix Janitor had become a worldwide trend with 80 million views. "But there's one thing I need to do," Kesha continued, removing a flash drive from her pocket. "For 8 years, I've been collecting evidence about the conspiracy that destroyed my career. Deathbed confessions, forged documents, offshore bank accounts, recordings of compromising conversations." Mitchell took the device with trembling hands. "Phoenix, this is the complete truth about General Morrison and his network of corruption, including how the Thompson family profited from selling weapons to terrorist groups." She looked directly at the devastated captain. "Your grandfather built his fortune on American blood, Bradley, and you inherited much more than privilege. You inherited guilt. The consequences were immediate and devastating. Within 72 hours, the federal investigation had frozen the Thompson family's accounts, uncovered decades of military corruption, and initiated criminal proceedings against dozens of officers. Bradley Thompson was arrested for obstruction of justice while attempting to destroy evidence. Foster, who had filmed everything, became an instant celebrity when his live broadcast broke audience records. "Man," he said in a later interview, "I thought I was filming a cruel prank. I ended up documenting the rebirth of a legend." 3 months later, Kesha was sitting in her new office as director of the Phoenix Aviation Academy, a school she had founded to train pilots from marginalized communities. The wall behind her desk displayed a photo of her standing next to the F-16 the moment she removed her helmet after landing. "Director Williams," said Amanda, her assistant, "we got 50 more applications today. We have applicants from every state." Kesha smiled, watching young people from diverse backgrounds training on the flight simulator through the window. "Amanda, do you know the difference between privilege and competence?" "What is it, Director?" "Privilege fears competition. Competence embraces it." The Thompson family empire had completely collapsed. His companies were nationalized, his properties confiscated, and Bradley was serving a 15-year sentence for military treason. His wife had left him. His children had changed their last name. And he had become a social outcast. Mitchell, now General Mitchell, after a meteoric promotion, visited the academy regularly. "Phoenix, you could have any military command you wanted. Why did you choose this?" "Because, General, the best revenge isn't destroying my enemies. It's building something they could never create. A place where competence matters more than connections." Kesha's transformation had inspired systemic changes across the Air Force. New protocols were implemented to protect whistleblowers. Diversity investigations were ramped up and the Thompson case became required reading at military academies. "Do you know what my biggest mistake was?" Kesha reflected during a national interview for 8 years. "I believe that I lost my identity when I lost my rank. But true identity cannot be taken away by decree. It can only be given up voluntarily." Thompson, from his cell in military prison, watched news reports about the Phoenix Academy's growing success. The woman he had humiliated as a mere janitor was now training the next generation of elite military pilots. Foster, whose video had changed everything, became a documentary filmmaker specializing in exposing social injustice. That broadcast taught me that sometimes the most important story is the one happening right in front of us, but we choose to ignore it. On the first anniversary of the revelation, Kesha received the Congressional Medal of Honor for her years of military service and social impact. In her speech, she said, "Don't let others define your limits. For 8 years, they told me I was just a janitor. I chose to be the best janitor I could be while keeping alive the pilot I've always been." The Academy had become a national symbol of meritocracy and second chances. Students who had been rejected by traditional academies for lack of suitable profile were now flying some of the most advanced aircraft in the world. Thompson lost everything: family, fortune, freedom, and legacy. But Kesha had gained something immeasurable. Proof that dignity preserved in silence becomes the most powerful force when finally unleashed. Revenge, she taught her students, is not doing to others what they did to us. It is becoming so successful that they regret ever doubting us. 8 years cleaning toilets had taught Kesha Williams that dirt can be removed with hard work and patience. But some stains on the reputation of those who underestimate others are permanent. If this story of courage and rebirth has inspired you, be sure to subscribe to Black Voices to discover more stories about people who turned injustice into fuel to achieve greatness. Because sometimes being underestimated is the greatest gift your enemies can give you. They let their guard down just when you're preparing to fly higher than they ever imagined possible.